Good morning, everybody. Today we have with us uh, Nelun Gunasekara. She's a social development and gender specialist, and she's one of the governing council members of Marg Institute. She works as a consultant. She has been working with ADB Sri Lanka Mission, resident mission, as a social development and gender specialist for over 12 years. So it's nice to have you with us, Nelun. I hope you are doing well and you are safe. Uh, Good morning to you. Can you hear us, Nelun?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. No. I have just one question I'd like to pose to you. That is, you see, with post-corona virus, definitely is going to affect. There's going to be a downturn in the economy. But those who will be most affected, in my view, would be the people in the informal sector, particularly the non-agriculture informal sector. So even in that sector, I believe there are quite a proportion of women entrepreneurs, and I believe they will be affected, because there will be difficulties for them to have access to raw materials, have access to markets, or even sell their products to the existing customers. So, what sort of advice would you give organizations that are, particularly looking after vulnerable groups, civil society, development agencies that have projects, who are now wondering how to support these women entrepreneurs in a post-corona situation?
Well, thank you for inviting me to, for these sessions. And I think, first of all, I don't think I would like to give advice. What I think I would do is to perhaps highlight what I feel are key issues in relation to women entrepreneurs in the SME sector, and see, what their situation could be like in a post-COVID-19 scenario. And in the context of the issues they might face, then see what sort of initiatives need to, be put in place to help and support them to recover. And I think in that context, I think the first issue is to say that I'm glad you are focusing on the informal sector, because very often the focus tends to be on the formal sector, and there's this sort of mad rush to try and get women into the formal sector through training and so-called capacity building and things like that. But I think there is a whole host of issues which constrain women from entering the formal sector, from social norms and ideas about what women should do and should not do, their domestic obligations, and as well as very practical considerations about mobility and safety and security in mobility, access to and ownership and control over assets and resources. So I think we need to recognize the fact that, there's now 33.6%, I think, of women in the formal economy. But there are over 70% of women in the informal sector. And as we've seen, I think, in the context of the pandemic, it's the informal sector workers, women and men both, who have been the hardest hit, because they are the ones who live on a daily wage. Their income is not secure, it is not regular. They may not have sufficient savings to fall back on. And that all makes them extremely vulnerable. And I think, so we need to see, okay, in a post-pandemic world where, economies have been very badly hit, where production processes have come to a halt, where, supply chains have broken down, markets are lost, then, what are the issues that these people, particularly women, are going to face? What issues do they face now? And to what extent will these continue, and what perhaps can be done? I think in the context in general in the informal sector, as I've said, it's the precarity, the precarious nature of the work, the fact that it is often irregular, is, I think, the key issue we need to appreciate. And while there are many women entrepreneurs in the SME sector who perhaps are much more secure, who are quite well established, although at a small scale level, they've got their suppliers, they've got their marketing links, they've established markets and connections. They are even employing other people. They are the ones, the lucky ones perhaps, but they too are going to have been hit by the pandemic. And then of course there are those who are struggling to establish themselves, and now face a really severe situation. I think we need to look at their situation in the larger context of the economic downturn in Sri Lanka, and of course the global economic downturn that arises out of the pandemic, and the fact that economies, societies and economies have had to come to a halt, that production processes have either stopped completely or have had to slow down, and then see, well, where are these people, especially the women, in that context? So as you and I have already both mentioned, these very often are in the informal sector, especially those who are in the process of being established, and they are the ones who are going to be most hit by the lack of supplies. In the first instance, the lack of mobility, the lack of suppliers, and the fact that their markets may have diminished considerably or may have been lost altogether. And I think especially for women, given the fact that they are the ones who face a double burden, they are, I think, much worse off. Even now, in the context of the curfew and the lockdown, where they have to be housebound, they have to provide also for the family, they've got to take care of family concerns. They may face other issues. For example, there may be issues of domestic violence. We know that there are, there have been a lot of investigations on the impact of the virus and the lockdown on domestic violence, and domestic violence is said to have increased. So there may be women who face these situations. There may be women whose limited financial capacities have been further drained because they may have needed to help any staff who may have worked for them before the pandemic. And if there were people who had sort of, say, hired a few other women to work with them, to work in their little businesses, then they may have needed to help those people out. And then that could have also depleted their own resources. So in a post-pandemic situation where things are going to take time to get back to whatever was normal in the pre-pandemic context, they may find it difficult to have the financial resources to get moving. They may find that the suppliers don't have what they need, because the suppliers are also dependent on getting material from other sources or from perhaps overseas. And then that is going to affect their business. They have to perhaps deal with more restricted mobility, and the ability to generate financial resources is, I think, also going to be much more difficult, because the economy itself is in a downturn. governments have borrowed heavily or have been, given grants to manage the pandemic. But now they've also got to look at ways in which to revive national level economies. So, all that is going to trickle down and affect small scale entrepreneurs as well. And women who are in general more disadvantaged, as women, then they also are, in a sense, more severely affected by the post-pandemic situation. So that again, I think a lot depends on what the government will decide to do in terms of stimulus packages. I mean, in a pre-pandemic situation, we saw that the government had given considerable emphasis to the SME sector and had targeted women entrepreneurs in particular. There were many schemes through the ADB, for example, where banks were encouraged to, provide credit to women entrepreneurs, in addition to supporting them through training on business management, on writing business proposals, on managing finances. And that was a considerable stimulus for women entrepreneurs. So perhaps initiatives like that need to continue, as well as, banks and other organizations, business organizations, also perhaps reaching out to these people to see what particular support and assistance they individually need, and then seeing, what they can do to respond.
Another question I have, Nelun, is like, see, there's a large proportion of women coming from middle class families who supplement the household income with something that they do. And now, with the possibility of their husbands losing jobs, they will have an added burden to kind of earn more to kind of bridge the gap. So in a situation like this, I don't see insurance companies talking about, say, special insurance schemes for women entrepreneurs. Even some of these informal women coming from informal sector. And surprisingly, I don't see some of the trade unions, even trade unions.
Sorry, some of the?
Yeah, I don't see banks and insurance companies coming forward with various insurance schemes for women entrepreneurs at this point of time. Or they're not even talking about it. Maybe they are thinking about it. But are you aware of any of schemes of that nature that would act as a safety net for these women entrepreneurs?
No, I don't know of any thing at the moment. But what I'm saying is, prior to the pandemic, there were a lot of initiatives, especially supported by the government and maybe other non-state agencies, supporting women entrepreneurship. And I think that really needs to continue, and it needs to perhaps, identify precisely what these women now need in a post-pandemic situation. Because earlier, I mean, these initiatives focused on providing credit on easier terms. They accompanied that financial package together with other kinds of training, because it's no point saying, look, we can give you 50,000 rupees, now go ahead and do your enterprise.
Yeah.
Because people, both women and men, do need a lot of support other than that, and women in particular. I think those initiatives will continue, and I think what they need to do is to look at their target group and those whom they are already currently serving, and ask them, what they need in the post-pandemic situation. Because in general, we may find that, these women are now, some of them may be stuck because they lack, material for their enterprise as resource material. Their marketing networks would have changed or been lost perhaps. Maybe they no longer have the markets that they had depending on the kind of products or services they provided. So I think perhaps what was done prior to the pandemic needs to perhaps be reviewed and revised in the post-pandemic context to cater to the specific needs of the clientele. So if you provided a particular package of finances and non-financial support, then perhaps you need to review that now in the new scenario and say, look, this is what we gave you earlier, right? What is it that you require now? It may be difficult to do it, at a very individual level, but at least if there is an attempt to, go to their beneficiaries, go to their clients and do a survey and say, well, what is your current situation? What is it that you need now? Then you can abstract from that and get a sense of what are the particular needs that these women have in general, and then try and retailer what they offered to suit the new situation. And I think that is really important.
Yes.
Because you can't sort of go back to the same old, which may have worked, may have worked earlier, and and women really benefited from that. But now there is a different situation. Now the issues that they face perhaps are a bit more, a bit different. They're maybe a little more complicated. So those who provided support earlier need very seriously to review what the client needs are now and then redesign what they offered to suit the new context. I think that is one way in which the government and other non-state actors who are involved with the SME sector and supported women entrepreneurs, that is something that they really need to do.
Okay, thank you very much, Nelun. It has been very enlightening, and I believe, something positive came out of your presentation or your talk, that development agencies, NGOs, civil society can take out. We need to go back and look at what women entrepreneurs were getting earlier, but we need to review the whole package, the design of some of the assistance that women entrepreneurs got through various agencies, and we need to look at what is needed right now. So I think that's a kind of a positive thing for us to kind of dwell on. Thank you so much for your time. Stay safe. Don't go out. I'm advising people, even the curfew is lifted on Wednesday. Better stay indoors for a couple of more days and do something productive. Thank you very much once again for joining us, and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Thank you. Bye-bye.